The regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield in the County of Union, New Jersey at 7:30 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, March 1st, 2016 in the boardroom of the Administration Building, 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey. The purpose of this meeting is to transact the regular business of the Board and to transact any other business to come properly before the Board. This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield School Board, on Thursday, February 25th, 2016, caused to be posted at the office of the Board of Education, located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star-Ledger, the Westfield Library, Town Clerk of Westfield, Tap into Westfield, and Patch.com, a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and location of this meeting. Dana, can we have a roll call?
Mark Friedman.
Here.
Brendan Galligan. Robert Garrison. Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Here.
Gretchen Olig.
Here.
Peggy Oster. Charles Ostroff.
Here.
Mitch Slater.
Here.
Ginny, can you lead us in a flag salute?
Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Announcements. Charles, you have anything?
I do have something. Just have to remember where I put it. Okay, this is concerning the Westfield High School. Westfield High School was visited on February 18th by New Jersey Commissioner of Education, David C. Hess. He was accompanied by Assistant Commissioner Robert Bumpus, Chief Performance Officer Donald Mitchell, and Union County Interim Executive County Superintendent Roger Jenks. Principal Renwick and Superintendent Dolan, along with other administrators and teachers, welcomed them to Westfield. In addition to observing a freshman humanities class, the guests visited a special education classroom, the school's Digital Learning Center, and Project 79, an alternative education program. We were honored that the Commissioner accepted Mr. Renwick's invitation to Westfield High School to witness firsthand the meaningful instruction taking place and to hear the questions and answers from our staff members and students.
Thank you. Mark.
Okay, I have two. The first one is from intermediate schools. Congratulations to Max Shialaba from Edison Intermediate School for qualifying to compete in the state-level competition of the National Geographic Bee. The New Jersey State Bee will be held on Friday, April 1st, 2016. We wish Max continued success. Also, Black History Month was celebrated in our schools in February. Roosevelt Intermediate School held its 9th annual observance with a return by the Newark Boys Chorus. Guest speaker at the assembly was Jamal Joseph, celebrated writer, director, producer, poet, activist, and educator who shared his vision of hope and cooperation. Principal Stuart Carey thanked teacher Pam Friedman for organizing the school-wide assembly. Also, athletics, congratulations to the Westfield High School boys swim team. By now, we all know that the team was crowned state champions at the College of New Jersey, defeating Cherry Hill East. The board has invited the entire team to its meeting on May 10th, which will be held in one of our elementary school gyms, where we'll be able to accommodate all of the team members. And lastly, congratulations to Westfield High School winter track teammates Noel Blackford, Emma Jackler, Julia Myers, and Brooke Schaefer. Their combined time in the 4x800 relay at the Metropolitan Invitational on Saturday, February 13th is currently #1 in the state. Thank you.
Chris.
Yes, two announcements. The first concerns special education. The 23rd Annual Awareness Expo will be held Wednesday, March 16th from 7 p.m. to 9:45 p.m. at Edison Intermediate School. Sponsored by the PTC Special Education Committee, the annual event offers multiple workshops presented by special needs professionals for parents, educators, and special ed educators. The program is free and open to the public. Topics will include collaboration between parents, teachers, and students, managing anxiety and depression, practical strategies for home and school, medicate or mediate, and using technology for independence. Each session will be presented twice, once from 7:40 to 8:40 p.m. and again from 8:45 to 9:45 p.m. The presentation of the Make a Difference Award will be held from 7 to 7:30 p.m. to Catherine Brennan posthumously, whose teaching skills made a difference to the parents, students, and educators of the Westfield special ed community. The second announcement concerns Odyssey of the Mind. On Saturday, February 27th, 16 teams from Westfield competed at the Liberty Regional Odyssey of the Mind tournament in Oradell. Westfield's 103 participants have been working since September to develop solutions to predefined, open-ended problems. Each team presented solutions in an 8-minute skit and also participated in a spontaneous problem-solving component. Congratulations to all the students for doing an outstanding job, particularly to the 9 teams who will be advancing to the state tournament on April 9th in Ewing, New Jersey. The teams include 4 from Edison Intermediate School, 1 from Roosevelt Intermediate School, 2 from Tamaulipas, and 2 from Wilson. More information about the teams can be found in the news section of the district website. Odyssey of the Mind is an international educational program that provides creative problem-solving opportunities to students from kindergarten through 12th grade. So congratulations to everybody who participated in that.
Thank you.
Okay, from the world of performing arts, just in time to shake off winter, Roosevelt Intermediate School takes you to the Caribbean with a captivating and energetic musical, Once on This Island. Song and dance prevails with a variety of musical numbers that incorporate the entire cast. Tickets are on sale now. It can be purchased online at ris.booktix.com or at the door at Roosevelt School at 301 Clark Street. Ticket prices are $10. Performances will be Friday night, March 4th at 7:30. Friday night, Saturday at 7:30, and Sunday the 6th at 2 o'clock. Should be an excellent, excellent show. The Westfield High School Theater Department is proud to present Stephen Sondheim's Into the Woods on Thursday, March 10th, Friday, March 11th, and Saturday, March 12th. All shows are at 7:30 p.m. Combining classic fairy tale characters with the musical genius of Sondheim, Into the Woods offers a fun, contemporary, and slightly dark twist on the classic fairy tale story. Tickets are sold for reserved seating and can be purchased online at the highschoolbooktix.com site. Maybe we'll put the scroll up there for folks. Or at the door on the day of the show for $14 each. All performances will be held in the auditorium at Westfield High School, located at 550 Dorian Road. And if the shows are anything like they've been in the past, you don't want to miss them. They'll be wonderful. Thanks.
Oh,
This is a community announcement. This year, the 50th Annual Westfield Rotary Breakfast Fundraiser will be assuming a new name. It will be called Breakfast with the Bands and will be a catered breakfast as opposed to the homemade pancakes from the past. It will be held Saturday, March 19th from 8 a.m. to noon at Westfield High School Cafeteria B. The morning features the exclusive entertainment of Westfield School District instrumental ensembles. The cost to attend the breakfast is $10. The Rotary Club of Westfield, whose motto is Service Above Self, was formed in 1921 and has supported the Westfield community since that time by granting more than $2.4 million for college scholarships and hundreds of thousands of dollars in community grants to worthy organizations, and has completed numerous community service projects. The Rotary Club has issued grants to support music programs in our schools and most recently to help our championship marching band with an upcoming purchase to support the program. I hope to see you there, join in, and have a great time.
Thank you. I have a few announcements. First, from the high school. Westfield High School senior Sarah Boyle's 2 entries into the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards regional competition have won its highest award. Boyle received a gold key for her 8-piece fiction portfolio and 1 for her short story. She also earned an honorable mention for the flash fiction piece that she entered. Boyle's portfolio will now go on to the national competition, from which 16 winners will be awarded $10,000 scholarships. We wish Sarah continued success in her writing and in the national contest. The high school also has been notified that 8 more students have achieved perfect scores on SAT and ACT standardized tests widely used for college admissions criteria. And students who excelled on the SAT include Amy Leong, math and writing, Cindy Chung, math and writing, and Michael Haig, reading and writing. ACT top scorers include Emily Holtzman, English and Science, Anna Ionescu for writing, and Owen Bartok, English, Quinn Clark Magrab for Science, and Jasper Bauer for writing. Congratulations to all of these students. Our next Board of Ed meeting will be Tuesday, March 15th at 7:30 p.m. at 302 Elm Street, and the complete agenda will be available on Friday, March 11th on the Board of Ed website. Before we launch into our business in the superintendent's report, I just wanted to also announce that just this morning, the board received a letter from an attorney representing the Taylor Neighborhood Preservation Association, who raised, it was an 11-page letter. So the board's counsel is currently reviewing the many legal citations and statutes cited therein, and we need time to digest it and respond. In many ways, it seems similar to the lawsuit that was brought last year, but it's simply too voluminous for us to have made a decision in one business day. So we are, for those of you that are here, with respect to the lights at Kaler Field, we're going to table that item tonight and proceed once we've had a chance to consult with our attorney and figure out the best way to proceed. Anything further on that?
I don't think so. So it will not be,
Yeah.
it'll be tabled from the agenda.
We're going to table it, right, and there'll be no board conversation about it now and going forward until there's some resolution with respect to the legal tone that we received this morning.
Do you want to move the facilities agenda now and just take care of that? Table it officially?
We can do that, although, I mean, we can table it in order. I don't know that there's any reason to jump around.
Okay.
Hopefully people trust us enough that if they don't want to wait until that portion of the meeting, they would feel free to go now, but.
Hey, Gretchen, do we have an idea of when we might get a response from our attorney? I know they just got it today. So.
Yeah, in the town, the mayor, the town council, there were a lot of CCs on it, so I suspect there's a lot of conversation that needs to be had. And so I just don't have a sense of the timing at this point.
Okay.
Anything else? With that, I'd like to recognize the public. If anyone would like to speak on agenda items, you're welcome to come to the podium now. All right, seeing no one come, then I'll.
No, there's someone there.
Oh, sorry.
Any agenda item or?
Any agenda item, you're welcome to come and speak now, or you can wait until we get to that part of the agenda, and then you can address us then. It's up to you. You want to wait?
Yes.
Okay. All right, then we'll launch into the superintendent's report.
We actually have two this evening, but we're starting with our most recent report on the budget. Since our last meeting, we have received the state aid figures from New Jersey, and our business administrator, Dana Sullivan, is going to present the most updated information.
Good evening. So we started the budget process back in early November. The board had a workshop in November, and we used this guiding change document. This was a document that we put in place 2 years ago in order for the board to set direction for the administration in developing the budget. So you can see here we have the first column is for the current context and realities of the budget. The center column was the unacceptable means in developing the budget, and the third column were the results, the parameters that the board wanted us to proceed in developing the budget. So in my presentation, I'll address the second and third columns. So the first one is results. The board wanted to make technology a priority and fund the amount recommended by the technology committee. Board wanted us to stay within the 2% cap plus eligible waivers, and the board wanted us to reduce the fund balance used as a revenue in the budget from $1 million to $600,000. Going to the first one, the tech budget. So the 15-16 budget, we spent $1.4 million. Next year's budget reflects roughly a $100,000 increase. The major parts of that budget are the upgrades that we're doing at the elementary school this summer. 2 summers ago, we did upgrades to the Wi-Fi and replaced switches at the high school. Last summer, we did the middle school level, and this coming summer, we're going to do the elementary level. You'll recall there were 2 different pieces of this expense. Part of it was funded in the bond referendum that was just approved last month, and the rest of it is in the operating budget. And the reason that we separated those 2 pieces is to maximize state funding. The part that we put into the bond referendum, we will get state aid in the form of debt service aid for that. And the piece that lives in the operating budget will get E-rate funding, which is a reimbursement after we spend it. So the budget does reflect $1.45 million. The breakout of that 1.5 million, about 815,000 represents recurring costs, and that's for our internet, private fiber, licenses, supplies, things of that nature. And the 725,000 are the improvements that we are continuing to make to technology. You'll see there some of that reflects the payments for upgrades that were made in past years. They were financed over a 3-year period. So high school, we're looking at the 3rd year payment. So next year, of course, that will go away. After this year, we'll have 1 more year with the middle school, and the elementaries will have 2 more years after this budget. The second direction that we had was to stay within the tax levy with adjusted waivers. So the tax levy, the cap is on the tax levy, and it's a 2% cap on increasing the tax levy. We are allowed a waiver for our health insurance costs. If health insurance costs exceed 2%, which they always do, we are allowed to increase the tax levy by a certain percentage, and that's calculated by the state. This year, our health insurance went up less than 6%. It was about 5.7%. 2 reasons for that. One, we self-insured at the beginning of this fiscal year, so July 1st, we switched to a self-insured plan. We've been doing very, very well up through December, and hopefully that will continue through the end of this year. So that, combined with increased contributions from our employees, have allowed us to budget for a less than 6% increase, whereas previous years we've been looking at 10 to 13, and sometimes even more increases. So that helped us with this year's budget, a tremendous amount. So the debt service, we also received additional state aid in debt service. So the combination of the operating budget and the debt service our taxes are going up 2.1%. So we're just slightly above that 2% cap. But this, again, is an adjusted cap.
Dana?
Yep.
Can I ask a question now?
Sure.
On the health insurance, I don't know, maybe you know this off the top of your head because it's a big number. If you kind of looked at the average increase, let's say over the last couple of years for health insurance versus what we're going to incur this year, do you have a ballpark for what you would think the savings is annually?
Or dollar-wise?
Yeah.
I would say for this year, we're probably looking at like 700,000 or so, less than we have budgeted in past years increase.
Right.
And possibly next year we'll see even more of a savings because we're only 6 months through the self-insurance. We still are being pretty conservative with our estimates for next year because obviously we have to have enough in that account. So I would say this year we probably saved about 700,000 and hopefully going forward more.
Okay, great. Thank you.
The third item was to reduce the fund balance that we use as a revenue to 600,000. So 5 years ago, we used $1.4 million of surplus as revenue, and we used that for 3 years. Last year, we were able to reduce that to $1 million because we don't think 1.4 million is sustainable every year. As our budgets get tighter and tighter each year, $1.4 million is a lot of money to count on as revenue. So last year, we were able to reduce that to 1 million. Our goal in November was to try to reduce that to 600,000 this year. Unfortunately, we're not able to do that, but we did reduce it to 750. So it is almost half of what it was 2 years ago. We did receive some additional state aid for the operating budget, and that's reflected in the slide up there. And as I mentioned, we also received additional debt service aid, but that's not on this slide. This is just operating budget funds. Continuing along on the results. Consider funding for director of development. So we have spent a large part of this year looking at possible ways to bring alternate funding into the district. It's not something that there's not a lot of models in public schools that we could use to look at this, but a couple things we do know. You need somebody with an expertise in doing this type of thing. And it also needs to eventually be done outside of our budget. There's too many restrictions on funds once they come into our budget on how we can spend them and what we can do with them. So the guidance that we have received is that eventually this will have to be done by some not-for-profit 501c3 that gets set up. But what we did do is add $75,000 in the budget that would fund either a person, a part of a person, or whatever other costs we had for somebody to make recommendations for how to go about putting something in place and the next step to creating a foundation or something, or an alumni group or whatever, wherever we head with that. Number 5 was commit funding to at least one new elective. We actually have 2 electives, and I think the board approved these at the last board meeting. It's Women's Studies and Global Citizen, so that there is funding in the budget for that. And the last result was to maintain a balance in the capital reserve account sufficient to cover the cost of replacing the track and turf at Kaler. So again, we are still considering outside donations for this as well as other capital improvements, but we do have balances in both the maintenance reserve and the capital reserve account, and there will be sufficient amount to cover that project or others if others come along. The limitations on increasing the budget do not increase class size. So this budget does maintain all of our current class size parameters with no major adjustments to that. Do not reduce the 2% of the budget that we hold in emergency for reserves. We will not be doing that. We still will maintain our $1.9 million, which is the maximum amount we are able to keep in reserve for emergencies. Do not make reductions that are inequitable. We have not done that. We've made reductions in areas where we can see that we can gain efficiencies, but not to any programs. And do not eliminate courses recently approved by the board. There were no classes eliminated due to budget reductions. 5 was do not reduce funding for the school resource officer. So you'll recall several years ago, we had added $50,000 to the budget for a full-time school resource officer. Last year, we cut that back to $25,000, and the time of that officer in the schools was reduced. We've now provided the funding back to $50,000 with the hopes that he or she would be in the building 5 days a week, in the buildings 5 days a week next year. And do not reduce master tech teachers related to technology, as we spoke about before, and this budget does maintain funding for those teachers. So breaking down the operating budget increase, the total increase was $2.1 million. $839,000 of that is for health insurance premiums. We did include 1.6 teachers at the intermediate level, and that was to reduce class size a bit. They had an enrollment increase last year, and we weren't able to add teachers, so we were adding them this year to try and reduce some of the classes there. As I mentioned, we increased funding for the SRO, $25,000. We have an increase for the development office of $75,000. Salaries overall went up $881,000. Special ed increased $363,000, and all areas, other areas of the budget actually went down $144,000. So we have a total of $2.1 million. And total staffing, as we've talked about before, staffing and benefits represent over 80% of our budget. So I showed you a graph here of the staff in the district. 47.7% represent regular ed teachers. Another 25.8% of our staff are for special ed teachers and paraprofessionals that only work with special ed students. 6.3% are principals, supervisors, and secretaries. 7.3% are our maintenance staff. 6.3% are operations staff. And nurses, guidance, and librarians are another 6.2%, and 0.3% are for athletics.
Dana, this is based on head count.
Head count, yes. Well, it's based on FTEs, full-time
Full-time
equivalents.
employees, not
Yeah.
dollars spent.
No. So cost per pupil, the Department of Ed, New Jersey Department of Ed takes audited data that they receive every year. The audits are done by third-party accounting firms, and they submit the audits directly to the state of New Jersey. who then takes the figures and calculates a cost per pupil. They do take several different costs out of the cost per pupil, one of them being out-of-district tuition costs, because it's not comparable from district to district. You can spend $200,000 or $300,000 on one student versus 10 or 15,000, so those costs come out. This table compares districts that are K-12 districts with more than 3,501 students. And again, because that's more comparable than comparing a district that's doesn't have a high school or has many less students. Our cost per pupil for 13-14, which is the last year that the data is available for, was $13,140. You can see many districts here are above us, and the state average is actually $14,543. So pretty significant difference per child. If you multiply that by 6,350 kids, it's a big difference in our total budget. And the budget calendar, as I mentioned, we've been working on this budget, certainly in the administration and staff since early fall. The board has been discussing the budget at various meetings from November on. At the next board meeting, we will be approving a tentative budget, which then gets submitted to the Union County Executive Superintendent, and they will review it and approve it for advertising, which we will do on April 21st, and then April 26th we'll have a public hearing and final adoption. These dates, most of these dates from here on out are set by the state, so we have flexibility in like within a week or so, but not too much flexibility on these dates. And that concludes the presentation. Any questions?
Thanks, Sarah. Jenny?
No, I just have a comment. So it appears to me that, first of all, thank you. Excellent job. Cumbersome and comprehensive report and effort. It seems to me, and it's what I really want to say, that the guiding change document has been beneficial to the process. So
Yes,
I just wanted to.
I would agree. We were talking about that just today, that it really has helped us.
I think its structure is new to us at the table. We used it last year for the first time. But it takes into account the elements that, interestingly, school boards has always projected that boards need to consider early on in the budgeting process, which is to define criteria and parameters, priorities, and it is certainly in a way that seems to have resonated with board membership as well as you and the administration. So, so that's really good news.
Agreed.
Ann, could you go back to the slide that shows was towards the end of the presentation where you showed the increases of...
That?
Yes, perfect. So, I think this stands out, but I think it's worth mentioning. You know, we've obviously got a very big budget, and there's 3 line items basically that drive the increase, and it's the same thing every year. We have the health insurance premiums, which go up a significant amount. We've got our labor, which is contractual, and then special ed. And can you just talk about the fact of how special ed increases are treated differently perhaps than our increases for health insurance, where we get the waiver for health insurance?
Sure. So our special ed, that's a budget that we go over and look at over and over several times. The first draft that we got from special ed was much higher than the final draft of what we put in the budget, because we are not allowed a waiver for anything in excess of 2%. So anything that we do put in that account over 2% has to be offset someplace else. So we did go back and review through all of the tuition accounts to see where we could possibly make reductions. We have thoroughly reviewed the IDEA grant, because there's an area where we charge many out-of-district tuition student costs to. So we've looked at that grant again to maximize costs, which has enabled us to move some costs out of the operating budget. So we wound up, our ending place in special ed was a little under 5% increase. Unfortunately, we can't, we're probably stretching this under the 5%, because tuitions do tend to go up, sometimes 7% and more. So we're not being too conservative with this amount, but we're hoping that with keeping a tight eye on it and monitoring it, that we'll be within the budgeted amount. But yes, it's a struggle for us, because anytime we go over 2%, something else has to give, which is why you see those other areas of the budget going down. And, you know, every year I can tell you that the budget's getting tighter and tighter, and that's why our reliance on the fund balance as a revenue to the tune of $1.4 million like it was a couple of years ago was something that was not sustainable, because we're not generating in the budget that kind of surplus year after year anymore. And, you know, I know that sounds like a lot of money that you generate. It's really not on a $100 million budget. To have $1.4 million extra at the end of the year is not that much money on that size of a budget, because you can't by law run a deficit. So you have to run, you're not going to run a budget to zero, it's impossible. So you have to run with some kind of a surplus. So this year, we were able to do this budget without making major reductions, but it's a tight budget. There's not a lot of flexibility in there, I can tell you that.
Well, I think you do a great job, and you know, I get to see a lot of it firsthand. Well, not firsthand, really, maybe second or third hand on the finance committee. But you know, between yourself and Dr. Dolan and the administration, there's a lot of really hard work goes on here. And you know, I'm often approached, you know, around town about the budget, and people wondering. And I admit, before I got on the board 5 years ago, I wondered, you know, with a $100 million budget, or at that time $92 million budget, why we couldn't do more with that, you know, that kind of a number. And the fact is, you see it up, you know, the public can see it up there. There are these three major line items that drive everything. And there's a lot of other line items that go on in this budget to be able to maintain the kind of quality district that we've got. And what this is saying is that all those other lines went down in the budget year over year. And that's, you know, quite a feat. And also, you can't keep doing it year after year. Right. So things like that got pushed by the administration and Dana, self-insurance, saving $700,000 from one year to the next. Those are the kinds of the creative things that I think, you know, the entire group is doing. But, you know, we're not magicians. It's very difficult to replicate those kinds of savings year over year. So good job. Thank you.
I agree. I just wanted to jump. I think your point about the special education costs is significant. And when Brendan, Dana, and Dr. Dolan and I met with the legislators last year, we continue to press that point, that we could really benefit, districts like Westfield could benefit from a waiver, like the healthcare waiver. It hasn't happened, but I think it's it's something that we can continue to press for, because it would benefit us tremendously. So, does anybody else from the board have any questions for Dana? Anybody from the public? Any questions about the budget? Okay, thanks, Dana.
And one of the areas of the budget we spoke about was technology. Certainly technology has changed all of our lives and continues to, and it certainly changes education as well. So to talk about our efforts in technology, what we've accomplished, what we're working on, I'll first introduce Paul Panero, who's our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction, and Programs.
Good evening. I guess in 2012, the board and the district decided to take the technology in the district from what Mitch would term back then as maybe behind the curve at the least, to really ahead of the curve now. And if you listen to the commissioner who visited, as Charles pointed out earlier tonight, visiting the high school with some of his agents from the Department of Education, and if you looked on television for classroom close-up not too long ago, some people think that we've made it to this, ahead of the curve, maybe leading edge even. So before jumping into everything, I would like to thank the board on behalf of the district for assisting and pushing and being good teammates with getting us to where we've gotten in the last few years. And I do look forward to bringing up Adam and Janine shortly as people who've really driven the instructional piece of that as well. So really just a very brief overview of the plan itself. I believe Brian Alker, the Chief Tech Officer, was here not too long ago, and he probably talked a little bit nuts and bolts. So you've been exposed to things like discussions of switches and bandwidth and access points, wiring in general. That would be considered the infrastructure. So back in 2012, when we made the commitment to moving forward dramatically, the first thing was to make the campus, meaning the district really, equipping it with a reliable and robust Wi-Fi system. So access for all students all the time, and teachers, of course, in the classrooms. So that was the initial goal. In 2012-13, we really deployed the tech folks over at the high school to really dig our teeth into fixing up the infrastructure there and moving towards this access for all with robust Wi-Fi. And to go along with that, the idea being if we build it, you just can't expect it to be used. So we did employ we embedded 2 master tech teachers. And what they were able to provide us is ongoing and sustained professional development inside the classrooms, during lunch times, after school professional development. So they've had a huge impact on getting the best bang for the investment that we've made in technology. So the next slide shows us 2013 through 2018 really, but 2013 through 15, we started focusing on the intermediate school to get up to speed there with the infrastructure. And we developed some pilots and cohorts with the master technology teacher. So what that means is if we had some advanced teachers who were comfortable with the idea of working with a cart for all of the students in a class and working on a daily basis in a one-to-one environment, then we were able to launch that. And in some cases, we did it with students bringing in their own devices. So we've been piloting and peppering sort of throughout the district these kinds of initiatives. And ultimately, what it's leading to is exposure for all staff and this organic growth towards bringing everybody to this leading edge in all the classrooms in the district. So we're getting there. We're not there at every classroom, but we're certainly getting there, and quicker than I thought we would, to be honest. So really just going through that, the infrastructure then is turning its attention to the elementary schools, and again, continuing the professional development to make sure we're maximizing our investments. And moving forward into 17 and 18, we will have, by that point, made the entire district, the campus, robust in its Wi-Fi and access to the internet, and we'll continue to provide the professional development and expanding those pilots. So that's the overall plan as it started in 2012 and where we see it in a couple of years. I'd like to point out some national and state recognition that we've received since the beginning. Early on, Janine Gotko, who will be coming up shortly, was cited as 20 educators to watch by the National School Boards Association. So that's nationwide. I'm sure they received thousands, perhaps, nominees for this award, and Janine came out on top because the model that we have here and the work that she's done is exceptional, and it's really made a difference, and the National School Boards Association agreed. We've also done some presentations going back to something that Mitch and Ginny had said early on when we first started the initiative. Why are we going to these association workshops and conferences and watching other people, which would be Westfield, doing demonstrations and presentations for the rest of the world? And we've seen that. Janine was involved in the School Boards Association presentation, again, presenting the model that we use here in Westfield. And Adam Peasy was involved with the New Jersey Educational Computing Cooperative presentation. So our master tech teachers are representing Westfield out in the world as the leading edge kind of folks that we are. In addition, we have on the screen, it mentions the visit that the commissioner made, Charles referenced earlier. But that is really, you know, Mr. Renwick was delighted, like a proud parent, and brought the commissioner and the chief innovation officer as well as the assistant commissioner around the building to the different locations that were mentioned earlier, and Adam joined as well. And from what we understand, the commissioner was very well impressed, very excited to see what he was seeing, and complimented us highly. So I think that counts as part of the recognition that we're proud of as well. And then the next item is actually the next slide, and that's the New Jersey Classroom Close-Up. It's the New Jersey Educators Association's online magazine. It's on television too, actually, so it's a television magazine sort of thing. And they did a segment on our program, specifically the model that we use for professional development. And at this point, we'd like to show you that video. It's about 5 minutes, but it really encapsulates all the work that we're doing in the district, in the classrooms right now.
Here. Oh, there.
Yes, 8. So 4 plus 4 is 8. Now one more.
15.
If you know one sum, 9 plus 6 equals 15, you know this sum. You know another sum. This is my forte, all of this. The technology piece is not necessarily my forte. And Ms. G, she helps enrich and extend every lesson that we're doing together, adding that tech piece.
So Mrs. Montez asked me to find something on our iPads that would help us practice our strategies and help us learn our addition facts. So Ms. G. So my role is I'm a former classroom teacher who has now been put in the position of I now do professional development, coaching. I assist teachers with digital education, and I get to go into classrooms and teach with teachers. I get to work with teachers on planning lessons and things like that. 14's greater than 5. You got it.
We can have all the technology in the world, but if the teachers don't know how to use them effectively in the classroom, it's really wasted resources. And we found the model of the master technology teacher, someone who can come into the classroom, either co-teach with the teacher or share resources or be a place where they can drop in, really gives teachers someone that they can go to.
The pace of change is frenetic, it's feverish. The idea of having someone here at the high school and at the middle school and at the elementary schools, I think is a smart move. We're keeping up with the latest technologies, the latest digital platforms, to make sure that when our teachers start utilizing them and working with them, that they're used to them so that they can roll them out to their students in a very efficient way.
We could have brought in consultants from the outside, but Adam and Janine already had rapport, respect, and trust. Teachers worked alongside them for years, and if you had a question, you went to them in the first place.
I teach 2 classes. I'm in it with them. I'm experiencing this new technology myself.
We know what goes on in a classroom. We're familiar with the curriculum that our teachers and students are working with. So, we're bringing our tech knowledge along with that curriculum knowledge.
Are there things that you're beginning to become aware of as you sort of begin to plan those lessons? We've gathered together 8 teachers. We've given them a one-to-one environment in their classroom of Chromebooks, and we bring them together on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, and we're able to share best practices, hear what's happening in their classrooms, share out strategies and methodologies, find out what's working and what's not working.
You could give them the Chromebooks, you could give them the document, and then I could give them a YouTube video that maybe explains the document in more detail, an analysis from a website, okay, maybe some of my own comments.
I videotape them doing the cross-examination in class and then upload the video to YouTube, where then they have an opportunity to do a lot of self-assessment. The cohort model has been working very well because teachers have a go-to group where they can collaborate, and what works well in the social studies class may work well in English, and they can really, cross-pollination, I kind of say, where we have this group of experts now, that then the next step is that it spreads out to the building as a whole.
I have an idea, I have the project outline, I'm just looking for a platform.
Okay. The Digital Learning Center is a space in the high school where we hold professional development for teachers. It's also a resource for teachers where they want to come and have a one-on-one session about designing a digital lesson for their classroom.
I've been doing stories, narrating the preterite and imperfect in my level 3 class for years, and I want to find a way to make the story come alive using a digital platform.
One technical difficulty that a lot of people have with video is the recording of the voice. And one way we figured out to solve this problem is the students should record it on their smartphones or any other phones they have.
So we would bring in all this technology and all these new methodologies of teaching and learning, but we would never really check in with the students, our audience. How are they best using this technology? What's the best way? What's the pacing of that? So we've tried to leverage the students out.
Luckily, it was an animated face.
Jiggle something.
We're almost there. Adam, maybe you can remember what you were saying.
Just act it out, Adam, make a buzz.
Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna.
It was, it's important to note that that's a server-side issue, not ours.
Yes.
Right, yeah, that was just about wrapping up, but I'm trying to remember, I've seen it, quite a few times. That really was close to the end. I don't know if there would have been some more reinforcement. Anyway, so it's a fine video. We're very proud of our rock stars and the work that they're doing, and we thought that we came off really great in that program. So I'll bring them up in a minute. In fact, you can start making your way up, I suppose. But I would like to just point out that, so Janine is our K through 8 master technology teacher, and Adam is over at the high school, and he's the one who's working with that cohort of teachers. I'll be speaking just a little bit at the end, talking about what's coming next for these guys and some others, but for right now, they're going to give us an update on their areas.
Paul, just add one thing, because I think this is so critical that everybody really understands this, is that 7 years ago in our district, we were 1/5 the speed of what you have in your house that was running the entire district, okay? That's just 7 years ago. Today, we're at a gigabyte, which is roughly 100 times faster, or as we called it at our last meeting, fast times at Westfield High. It's really incredible, and I really, one of the things I just really wanted to point out, as well as this could have not happening without the amazing master technology teachers and the leadership that Paul has brought here, but I also want to thank the taxpayers, because that's really how this got done. And the Board of Education, and when Jenny and I started this committee 6 years ago, when it was originally an ad hoc committee and became a full-blown committee, the entire board, everyone at this table and everyone that's been here over the last few years, made a very, very strong commitment to use these funds, and we continue to have that, to be fortunate to have great taxpayers in Westfield that dedicated time to come out and support the bond recently, which will help us complete the mission that we've been working hard, very, very hard to do. So I just, from the committee standpoint, we couldn't be prouder of everything that you guys are accomplishing. But I also really wanted to just kind of give a shout out to the residents of this town for really helping make this happen, because this is critical and it's working and we're winning awards and we're really only just begun.
And also just, the video is up on our website, the district website, so you can go on and watch the full video. It normally works. I think it's something on their end, not our end, thank goodness. And I would be remiss, and I know Adam would be, and Paul do, if I didn't thank Lori Korecki for helping us arrange the classroom close-up and preparing us for that, because we are not TV stars. We are teachers, so she was instrumental in that, and we thank her. And like Mitch said, we do thank the public, because, the work that's already been done, and then also the support of the bond this year is going to be key, especially for our elementary friends over the next few years. So just to touch base, what we've been doing this year, I've been in this position now, this is my 4th year, lucky that I have been. We've been continuing with certain pilots and different things that we started in the last 4 years, but obviously doing new things this year. So just at the elementary level, with our STEAM curriculum, we've been working a lot with our younger friends on coding. Many of our schools did Hour of Code this year, where they spent a week doing different activities, either in their classrooms or with their librarians to support Computer Science Education Week. Very exciting, our Google pilot at the elementary level is starting to spread even more. Last year, I had a few teachers across the district that we had started using Google Apps for Education with. This year, it's really caught on. All of our students at the elementary level do have accounts in our system,
We're working really with 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders to get them onto Google, to learn how to use Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets, to sign on, and to really, in elementary school, obviously, get used to that process and start to understand how to work in a digital environment. So that pilot was started, with some of our elementaries, many more than last year, and we're hoping even more in the coming years. Our iPad program, which was where we started with 4 years ago when I first came into the position, continues to grow. I say it's great because the teachers don't need me as much with the iPads. They're becoming more independent. And that's a result of all the PD we've been able to do over the last couple of years, and also the role that I have come in and done coaching and modeling lessons for them. So when it comes to the iPads in our elementary schools, obviously I still do come in, but it's a lot less than I used to. Now we're moving more with our iPads to more creation type of projects where they're not just learning how to use an iPad or learning what apps to play on it. We're producing digital stories, and they're doing podcasts in some of our upper elementary schools with their iPads. Very exciting this year, our health educators at the elementary level came to me at the end of last year and really wanted to learn how to embed technology into their curriculum. They wanted to make health education a little bit more exciting for our younger elementary friends. So they wanted me to come up with a way that they could do that. So we used an app called Nearpod, which I think I spoke about last year. It's a presentation app that you can use on the iPad, and you can also receive instant feedback from students who have their own individual iPads during a lesson. So the nurses, while they're doing their health education lessons, can ask questions of the students, and they can track and see, how the progress of the lesson is going, and do they need to, change things or reinforce things. And all of our health educators across all elementary schools started this year with at least one lesson, and they're working together now collaboratively to build lessons to go to next year and use that tech resource. At the elementary schools, a benefit of Park was that we do have increased access to new laptops, and I will tell you they are being used widespread at our elementary schools. All year long, sign-up sheets are always filled. Obviously, they're using them with some of the things we just mentioned, but other digital types of lessons are being used as well. Obviously, our one limitation is the Wi-Fi issue. Now we're very excited because we're going to, over the summer, have our Wi-Fi be on par with the other Wi-Fi access in the district. So while that tends to be an issue, our teachers are great and they make it work, and we have students, sometimes they have to sit in the hallways and sometimes they have to be in different positions, but our teachers are just great and they roll with it and they're still using the technology. But once again, thank you to the voters who did vote for the bond, because we're very excited that we're going to have that Wi-Fi access at the elementary level. This year, in addition to working at the elementary level, I also have been working at the intermediate schools, the 2 intermediate schools. And coming into that situation, I was coming in with the Wi-Fi upgrade. So met a lot of very excited teachers who are now ready to try new things, to find different types of lessons they could do, and obviously not have to worry so much about having access to different devices, different types of Wi-Fi problems that they had in the past. Our social studies department, Andrea Brennan, who's our social studies director, and the social studies teachers at the middle school made a commitment to Google Apps and using Google Classroom this year in all social studies classes, which was great because that meant we got all of our intermediate school students on Google Apps and Google Classroom. And the great thing about that is because they were working together as a team and they started this back in October with their kids, they had the ability now to kind of do what I'm doing, where they went to staff meetings and they met with other teachers and other departments and were sharing out best practices for what they were doing in Google Apps and Google Classroom. And now we have this rollover of more and more teachers in all subject areas almost using Google Apps and Google Classrooms in their classrooms as well. So we've been working really hard with that. I'm just going to skip ahead one. The Chromebook pilot that I mentioned here is 3 of our 6th grade intermediate teachers for social studies had a grant through the Ed Fund. So they have a one-to-one environment in their classrooms with Chromebooks, similar to what Adam was doing over at the high school. So they're using Google Apps with their students in a more regular basis. And as part of my job, we just had a meeting this week where we got to meet for a day of in-service. And we got to work together to plan digital lessons and share best practices. And we're going to be sharing out with the other teachers in the district what we've been coming up with and, possibilities for their classrooms as well. Like I said, at the elementary level, continue to work with the STEAM initiative. A lot of these things are going on in specific classrooms that, focus on technology, but other teachers as well, working with that. And then now that we have the Wi-Fi access, now that I'm kind of more embedded in those middle schools, my first year, really starting to work with teachers, not how do we just figure out how Google works or how do we get kids on, but really how can we change instruction? How can we change the way our classrooms are run using not just Google, but other digital platforms that are out there? So having the time to meet with them during the day, after school, and our PD that we're still running has really been beneficial, and I'm excited about where we can go forward with it. I'm going to turn it over to Adam, who's going to talk about the high school.
So I'll echo Janine's sentiments. Thank you for the support. Thank you for the vision, and we are running with it. This is my third year in the position. I'm not primarily at the high school, actually exclusively at the high school now. Just to give you some updates, I would say last year was our first official year of the high school being a Google school, meaning every student and teacher had access to a Google Apps for Education environment. Last year there was a lot of traction. This year it's very heavy traction with respect to kids using Google Docs, using Google Forms. Some of the teachers, actually a lot of teachers, are using Google Classroom to actually run the guts of their classrooms digitally with Google Classroom. A lot of humanities teachers, English teachers, foreign language teachers, and such. You saw on the video, I put together a Google Chromebook cohort this year with Paul's support. We have 8 teachers from different disciplines, foreign language, English, and social studies, where, like as I alluded to in the video, we meet once a month. Those are design sessions, so you've got a one-to-one environment in your class for all of your kids, meaning all the kids walk in and they have access to their own Chromebook. They've been assigned that. As Janine mentioned, it's not just about the technology, it's what can we do with it. So we meet once a month, we design lessons, and we're really trying to sort of move the chains forward with respect to leveraging the technology that we've been given. I will say that the Chromebook cohort is one of the more successful PD programs that I've run in my 3 years. I'm getting great feedback from the teachers. We're sharing great ideas. We're able to publish those ideas out to other departments, other teachers. So it's starting to really gain traction, not just within the cohort, but outside of it. I've got a bullet point here with respect to BYOD. As Mitch said, our wireless, and I said this last year at the meeting, our wireless at the high school is very, very strong. I don't think I've seen an outage this year. So the trust factor with respect to the teachers, even playing YouTube videos or doing something digitally in their classrooms, is a lot of trust. So what does that mean? We also gave kids access to that wireless as well. So they're bringing in mobile devices. Phase 1 is basically the kids bringing in their mobile phones, and they're using them in classrooms. We're at a phase 1 approach with that, and we're going to talk more about what phase 2 could look like. But as of right now, as far as BYOD, you're talking about mobile phones and the use of them in some of the classrooms. To give you some examples, teachers will be teaching and they'll ask the kids to take out their mobile phones to maybe answer a poll question or to do a mini blog or to share some feedback and do some research, obviously. So just give you a little insight there. You saw in the video right before it cut out, we still have a digital ambassador program, and the point of that was, as I said in the video, was to really gain some insight. All of these changes, all of this new internet technology, the wireless, and we've been sort of doing it with the teachers. The goal was, let's get some insight and feedback from the students. They're our end users. They're sort of our customers, our clients. So we wanted to gain feedback from them. I've got 2 great student ambassadors that are sort of running that program, and they're sending out polls to their peers, to other students, gaining insight from them, what works, what doesn't, how can we move forward with this. So it's just been a pretty strong program there as well out of the Digital Learning Center that we're running. Paul's going to talk about next phases, but again, thanks for the support, and we'll keep moving in the right direction.
Thanks, guys. Pretty impressive, right? Yeah. So this is a little bit of a summary of what we've referenced already, but the infrastructure is being upgraded at the elementary school. It's something that will really take hold in the summer. But so for next year, the elementary school should see some of the benefits that Janine had mentioned. Expansion of bringing your own device at the high school and at the intermediate level. This would be a larger population, and it would be beyond cell phones, as Adam was pointing out. And yeah, there's more to come for that with regard to what our infrastructure is able to handle. The variety of different devices makes the equity fair. So the different, eventually when our infrastructure is virtualized, any device can log in, and it's the case now, but any device can log in and have access to the same kinds of resources. We'll be expanding the cohort model at the high school. Adam gave you a really great overview of the different departments that he's working with. We always have an eye on what's most appropriate for different content areas. Next year, we'll be supplying tablets for the science and math folks, because we find that when you start digging your teeth into technology in those environments, tablets may be more useful than a Chromebook cart. And only by embedding these two in their classroom environments with teachers do you really save yourself the pain of investing in a cart, because that's what you do, and then finding out tablets would be better. So really keeping our ear to the ground and understanding the needs of the teachers and students has helped us in that regard. Okay, good. So we're going to continue to adapt and adopt new professional development practices. So what you see in Janine and Adam started out as a lot of after-school professional development and getting into classrooms, but it has evolved, and it's evolved based on needs, teacher interest, and it continues to evolve. So I look forward to seeing where it goes from here, but also supplying the resources that they need to really be in as many places at once and to reach as many people as possible. And again, we'll expand this concept of every student having a device in his or her hand, and that has something to do with the bringing your own. We're putting policies in place for that, and we'll be expanding that. So as the district moves towards a full campus where we have access to the internet in a robust fashion that's reliable, you'll see that the kinds of things that we're looking at in these really dynamic kind of showcase classrooms will be happening more regularly everywhere. So I guess I could end on that and just thank you all so much for your support. It really, I think, is the bedrock of everything you've seen Adam and Janine be able to portray tonight for you. And if there's any questions, we'll stay right here for a second in case there are any questions.
I just want to thank you guys for this presentation. You know, even though I have kids in the district, they don't tell me anything. So it's exciting for me. It's the stuff that makes me want to go back and do high school all over again. And you're both just incredibly dedicated and dynamic. And so thank you for keeping us all updated, those of us not on the technology committee, and taking the time. And keep it up and let us know what we can do to support you guys. Does anybody from the board have any other questions, comments?
I'd like to thank Dr. Dolan. Thank you for being receptive to and supporting the idea of our list of technology teachers on an ongoing basis. I think our model is just proven to be an outstanding success. I don't know how it will evolve, where it will evolve to, but right now it seems like the right place to be. And I couldn't be a more proud mom to the program. It's a great feeling.
I have one question. You talked about the student ambassadors. Did you do that on purpose? Do you find that they relate better to their peers and come back with the ideas that maybe their peers are more willing to talk to them about rather than the teachers, or is that just something that kind of evolved naturally? Because I thought that was a good idea.
Primary goal behind that was
just in case they need it.
The primary goal behind the whole thing was we were starting to move in this new direction of bringing in iPads originally maybe like 4 years ago, and now Chromebooks, and running teacher blogs and having digital discussions and doing videos. Janine mentioned podcasting and all of this new stuff that's possible with this strong connection we have, or this network. And we were moving in such a fast pace, but I don't believe at really any point we were able to sort of collect or catch the student perspective, or is this working? Is this right? Is this real learning? Does this make sense? And by getting a few of the kids involved consistently, and I run a digital learning center at the high school. It's a space for the teachers. You saw that in the video. And I have those student digital ambassadors come, and we sit, we talk. They help do professional development. We did an in-service for teachers 2 weeks ago, and they led one of the teacher PD classes for an hour, where you had about 12 teachers listening to the students and their perspective on what works in a classroom digitally and what doesn't, and things like that. So it was to really just get their perspective and their framework of learning.
Thank you. I think that's a smart thing to do.
I'm going to add real quick to that the original vision for that was this idea of a genius bar. Again, Mitch. But that starts out with something where you're thinking like some kids are going to help out with some technical aspects of it. But with Adam recognizing their abilities and just their ability to work with teachers. I mean, they're actually advising teachers at the same time. So you saw one of our Spanish teachers working with one of our students, and it's just phenomenal. I've never seen, you don't see that a whole lot, where teachers say, help me to teach better. But this is the right mode for that. When it comes to technology, if we're smart, we're all going to go to somebody younger than ourselves and say, help me with my technology. But when you see them working together, I did have the benefit of watching one of the teachers brainstorm how to do, they were flipping a classroom. And I watched that particular student in the digital learning center with the teacher developing the lesson and riffing, really. It was just beautiful to watch, because, you know, teachers catch on very quickly and they're like, yeah, but I want to do this. And he'd say, well, you might try that. And boy, that's when I realized that we went from some tinkering for some students to this full-blown partnership with teachers. I've never seen anything like that in my 23 years, as far as teachers working collaboratively with students on learning and instruction. So
that's great to hear.
Anything else?
Anybody from the public? Any questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much.
I think we should just take one moment to acknowledge all of the infrastructure strength that we have been able to, that this is built on, the foundational hardware and upgrades throughout all of the district that Brian Offerman and his department have put in place, and through our funding mechanisms that we've been able to put in place.
Right. I do think that the funds, the resources, the faith that we've put into this incredible team of Brian, the Chief Technology Officer, and his whole team, which, by the way, he has put together over years, and I think you all know the staff that he's put together is just amazing, and it's no coincidence. I mean, he knows what's out there. He's a great recruiter, and this team is just phenomenal. And I think he put it at the last tech meeting. He said, we built you the Maserati, now you drive it. And I feel that he couldn't have said any better.
This was an area of sore need of focus and development, and the district, I think, has come such a long way and is committed to keep moving positively. So it's all good.
In an era of year after year tight budgets, it would be easy to cut $600,000 from a technology budget, and it happened for a decade.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
It's nice to see the improvement, or the increase in investment sustained.
The return on this investment too will be significant. Already is.
All right, moving forward, I'd like to ask the board to approve the minutes of the board meeting held on February 16th, 2016, and the private minutes of the same date. Can I have a second, please? Ginny, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Or abstentions? Okay. Personnel, Mark.
I'd like the board to consider personnel items 1 through 13. 13 was an addendum at your table. Second, Ginny, thank you. Any comments? Dr. Dolan, we have a retirement.
We do have one retirement, yes. Tonight I'm announcing with regret the retirement of one of our custodians, Marion Deck. Marion has worked for the Westfield Public Schools since 1988. He was a custodian in Washington School and is now a custodian in the high school. He's a hard worker who always has a smile for everyone. And teachers are pleased when Marion is responsible for their classroom because he takes pride in his work and makes it a goal to create a clean, safe environment for the students. In retirement, Marion is looking forward to spending more time with his family, both in this country and in Poland, and we wish him well.
Any other comments, questions? Dana, please.
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Chris Langhart,
Yes.
Ginny Lights,
Yes.
Gretchen Olig,
Yes.
Charles Ostroff,
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
Nothing further.
Nothing further. Brendan, facilities.
As stated earlier, I asked the board to table motion number 1 under facilities. Can I have a second?
Jen.
Dana, do we need a?
Roll call, yes. Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Chris Langhart,
Yes.
Ginny Lights,
Yes.
Gretchen Olig,
Yes.
Charles Ostroff,
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
All right, I asked the board to approve facilities agenda item number 2. Can I have a second? Dana?
Can we, before we, yeah, can we have some conversation about it? I know that, even though it's a facilities matter, we had conversation at the policy committee table, so, I just think it's worthwhile to call out what the content, and Jenny, did you want to speak to it, or?
No, I just wanted to remind us that we have some people from the
Yes.
public here who may want to make a comment before the vote is taken.
So I'll just provide the board with a touch of background, if that's all right, Chris. That, so the Westfield Adult School has for a number of years, and hopefully you guys will correct me if I mischaracterize anything, used facilities at, in our schools. And last year they did not. I think that it was for a number of reasons, and they're now partnering with the Madison Adult School and are seeking a waiver of the fee that typically we would charge for use of the facilities. And so the conversation at the policy committee table was that for a number of reasons, the first of all being that we are kind of in the midst as a board of really taking a look at our facilities use policy and consistent application of it. And also because we've had a long-standing good relationship with the adult school that we wanted to provide support and hope that they were able to get back up and running, that the recommendation was that the board do a one-time, one-year waiver of the fee. And so, does anybody have anything to add?
What was the fee?
$25.80
Yeah.
a year.
I
$2,500.
think you have it in your memo right there.
Yeah. So do you want to come and, yeah, please, if you come up, I need to ask you to come to the podium. We have to make it all nice and formal. Just state your name and your address, please.
Gretchen, the one thing I'd add before that is that we are getting the proper insurance, as it says in here, we're being covered for the use.
Hi, my name is Randy Rosenfeld. I live at 123 Linden. My girls are graduates of Fine Westfield High. And, but the Westfield Adult School has been around since 1938, much older than my girls, or me, or even my parents. And Westfield's Adult School couldn't run programming this year, essentially because we didn't have enough money. There's many reasons involved. And Madison has reached out to us as a potential site because they run other places. And there's no guarantee. They said that what they need from us is no rent, and so we are very excited about presenting them with the idea of a year's free rent. We're not 100% sure they're going to accept that, but we know that we have a much better shot of them coming in and giving us a shot as a site, because with the year of free rent. And we know that without that, we definitely can't continue because we don't have enough in the bank to pay a semester, and none of us are going to blacklist anybody's name. So we thank you all for considering this highly. We really hope that Madison is receptive to the year, and we're doing our best to continue this long-standing tradition since 1938.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
So you're maybe partnering with Madison isn't the right choice, but they will basically do the administrative work for the Westfield Adult School, is that correct? Which
Yes.
which is overhead that you won't have to spend.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the plan is if they decide to take us on, Barbara Burton and I probably, and Betsy if she wants, but Betsy's very busy, McQuaid, will sit on their board for at least a year to ensure the transition's successful. They run adult schools out of Madison, Chatham, and Basking Ridge. And they have a big professional team. We were so impressed when we met with them. So if anybody has a shot, economies of scale of making it successful, we can't pay our administrators enough. We can't gender enough. It's just not a cost-benefit analysis doesn't work anymore, but with them, we have a hope of it working. And we're hoping they'll take that risk for us because we really want the adults in Westfield to be able to come to the school, do something fun like Italian or pottery, study something more serious, come to us for ESL because our programs are popular. So we're really hoping that Madison, essentially, we'll be active as board members, but we won't really be the administrators anymore if they keep it. And I hope that answers your question.
Yes.
Do you have more questions for me, or Barbara, Betsy have anything to add that I didn't cover?
Anybody else from the board? Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dana. Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Gallagher.
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Olig.
Yes.
Charles Ostroff.
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
Brendan, anything else for facilities?
That is it.
Ginny, long-range planning.
No, nothing, no comments.
Policies, Chris.
Yes, we have some items for policies. We met, the policies committee met last Tuesday, as you said, Gretchen. We talked about a number of things. I'll brief us on a couple. Why don't we take care of the things we have on the agenda first? I'd like the board to consider for first reading the following policies. 3142, non-renewal of a non-tenured teaching staff member. 3240, professional development for teachers and school leaders. 4140, termination regarding support staff members. Can I have a second? Second,
Jenny.
Does anybody have any questions on those?
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Gallagher.
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Olig.
Yes.
Charles Ostroff.
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
Second item, we approved for second reading, and we had these on the February 2nd meeting for first reading. The following policies: 2464, programs for gifted pupils; 3111, creating positions; 3141, resignation; 4111, creating positions for support staff members. Can I have a second?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mitch. Any questions on those? Dana?
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Gallagher.
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Olig.
Yes.
Charles Ostroff.
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
Third item, I'd like to ask the board to consider affirming the superintendent's decision on HIB incidents 16J01, 16E08, and 16R04 for the reasons set forth in each of those reports. Can I have a second? Jenny, thank you.
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Gallagher.
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Olig.
Yes.
Charles Ostroff.
Yes.
Mitch Slater.
Yes.
Okay. A couple other items. At the policies meeting, we talked about, we have 2 unused snow days so far, and we discussed applying them, assuming we have no more snow days. We picked the first Monday after Easter as the first one, and then it is the Friday before Memorial Day for the second.
That's correct.
Yes.
The first one would be March 28th, Monday, March 28th. And the second one, Friday, May 27th.
So I don't think we need to take any action on that. We just want to make everybody aware of that.
Right, we'll announce it. And then, of course, the second one's only assuming no inclement weather.
Yes,
Right.
that's
We don't
exactly
use
right.
any more days, right.
That's exact- And I will notify parents of that tomorrow, and we'll also get word out to the press so that everyone can be aware of that and can plan accordingly. And I did check the forecast before coming to this meeting. As of now, it looks as though we're going to be okay, so we'll hope that trend continues.
And finally, the last item is we talked about, it's come to our attention that there's been a girls' hockey team that's kind of been forming. So at the policies committee, we talked about whether we needed to talk about whether our policy for initiation of new sports programs applied. We had some back and forth, and we went back and tried to figure out what the board intended when they created the hockey teams. And I guess the latest report is that we created and funded 3 hockey teams. We made no explicit determination as to whether it be boys or girls hockey teams. So we've had the funding in place for 3 hockey teams over the past few years, even though we've only put 2 on the field, and we've divided the resources appropriately. So with the fact that we now have a 3rd girls hockey team that is possibly going to come into play, we are trying to determine whether we need any board action. I think we'll talk about it a little more, but right now, it doesn't seem that we're doing anything in contravention to what the board originally considered when they put the 3 hockey teams out there.
It was actually interesting. We went back, or at least I thought it was interesting. We went back into the records, and we do have great records here. And in 1994, the Westfield Board of Education approved the hockey program, and it was very clear in the wording that it was to be open to all students at Westfield High School. It was very, very clear. And so we started thinking why that would be, because honestly, that's not terribly typical when you look at teams. And so we dug a little bit deeper. We actually went in some of the archives of the Leader. And because we had a vague memory that, I wasn't here at that point certainly, but we had someone in the office had a vague memory that there was a girl on that first team. And indeed there was. And we actually found the mother of the girl. The girl is now 38, has a 3-year-old who is playing hockey. But when the wording was made by the board, it was very intentionally made for all students to participate because they knew there was a girl who was going to be playing on the team that year. And then over the years, there have been more girls who have played on teams because the resolution by the board was a little bit unusual. So it was interesting to look that up.
So, Chris?
Oh, Jay?
So, notwithstanding whether the board needs to action or vote anything, you and I chatted about this, but I still don't think I understand. How is it that we have, in your words, funded 3 teams, and we only had 2? That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
It seems to me that we've been funding 2 teams, and that any additional costs to now field this 3rd team have to be budgeted somehow, have to be paid for somehow. If there's a shifting of the dollars that those 2 teams, I don't know what we're funding, right? But as far as I'm concerned, if we're going to add to the dollars that we're going to give to another team, I think that should be open for the board to decide.
I understand. I think that's a valid point. I think my understanding of it right now is if you think of it as a pie, we have the money there, it's been allocated differently.
Then we're overfunding, I would argue.
Well, I mean, that's not something I don't think I can speak to.
Yeah, go ahead.
So hockey, as certainly parents of hockey players know, is an extremely expensive sport. So what the district provides is very little of what the hockey parents pay. Hockey parents do pay the student activity fee that everybody pays, but they pay an amount well above that every year. So our amount being paid is not going to increase at all, but our amount never paid for the whole team. Our amount pays for, it was 3 slots. It has always been 4 coaches, an amount for 4 coaches. That hasn't changed. And then there is a limited amount for referees. It does not pay for all of that, and it's a limited amount for transportation. So it can still be discussed. But again, hockey, because of the cost of it, is really quite different than the other teams.
So I'm just trying to play it out because I don't have an objection to the board. I guess we need to talk about what it is we're voting on. We're basically giving Sandy the authority, or the athletic director, the authority to disperse funds that she already has as she sees fit. Because what if in 3 years there's not sufficient interest for the 3rd team, or maybe there's a girls team and a boys team, but the second JV boys team, so is she gonna have to then, so this board has, not this board, the Board of Ed has already approved monies to be given to Sandy to support an ice hockey program, a Westfield High School ice hockey program. And then in her job as athletic director, she's allocated that accordingly, and the parents have made up the difference. So because her allocation is changing, you believe, even though it's not increasing our funding, that we should have to vote on that. But then does that mean every single time she's reallocating funding that the board's approved, she's going to have to come back?
No,
I'm just trying to play it out.
I
don't want to manage her in that. I don't want to overly manage her in that sense.
I totally agree with that. We have agreed that we're going to fund X number of programs. Now, I guess the curveball here is that somebody is suggesting that we agreed to fund 3 hockey teams, and we've only been
putting 2 on the
ice.
The way it was
and my
written.
argument is, if that's the case, then we have been overfunding 2 teams, because the cost of running the 2 teams from a district perspective is not what we've been funding. We've been giving more money to it.
I think, if I understand what you're saying, Mark, when you started, you said, irrespective of board action, which I agree. It's not whether we need to approve anything, maybe. It's maybe retroactively going back and looking at how things have been funded, maybe asking some questions. But I think from what I've heard from Sandy and from Dr. Dolan right now, I don't think there's been anything coming out of our pocket that normally wouldn't have been.
I think that so let's find out, Mark, let's find out. I think that the shift from, I don't think the board ever said, we are gonna fund 3 hockey teams. I think the board said, we're giving Sandy this much money for an ice hockey program. And that the enrollment in terms of whether there was a developmental team or who, that has shifted over the years just based on the population that was passing through the high school and who was playing hockey. So let's find out. Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's find out exactly what the board said
The
when
intent of the
we
language
gave
of
her
how
the
it's drafted.
right, when we allocated the money, which I think has been since 1994.
And my
Yes.
my
And then
recollection,
we'll-
the last conversation we had when the hockey team was here, when the parents were here, had mostly to do with the safety issues on the hockey team and providing more funding to help, if I recall, with some of the safety issues. I mean, that's just my recollection of at least the last conversation at the board table regarding hockey. It wasn't as much as funding another team, but it was the struggle that exists, and I know very well many friends whose kids play hockey, of the buses and everything else that existed. And there was a definite concern about, I believe, hiring another coach in order to provide for that extra safety level.
Mhm.
So that I think was the last discussion that I can remember, at least at the table. I don't know if you
Yeah, I think it was,
Mark, but that
I have some vague recollection of it too.
Not
which
that
would
long
be-
ago,
so
maybe 2
let's-
years ago, something.
Let's dig back and
Yeah.
find out exactly. Jenny?
Yeah. From the conversation at the policy committee meeting, my concerns don't date back to 1994. With the initial conversation about making an open and broadly inclusive ice hockey program. My concerns relate to the start of the Board of Education's commitment to fund the ice hockey program. So that is the research that I'm critically interested in.
Okay.
I think Charles had.
Yeah.
So, right now, we have a varsity and JV team, is what I'm understanding as far as it plays the high school level. And is it gender specific now, or it's not gender specific based upon how the language of the board had, I guess, in '94 put it together?
There have been girls who have played on those teams historically, not necessarily every year, but they have been co-ed teams.
Okay, so from a funding standpoint, if there is an interest, say, for a specific woman, female team, is there anything, because the board is funding, is there anything that deals with equality, gender equality, that we have to discuss?
So, that's like a 2-layered question. So we have a newly adopted policy that talks about new sports teams and how they are to be presented to the board, and then that policy then contemplates full funding by the board, assuming that things go as planned and the board approves. So for instance, right now we have a girls volleyball team, but we do not have a boys volleyball team. It has never been the case that boys play on the girls volleyball team. They've been very distinct programs. And so if the boys, they've made it known that there are boys at the high school who would like to start that team. So them coming, that's a separate sports program, and they would have to come to us under that policy. But we did not believe that this girls hockey program, that the policy applied to them for a couple of reasons. Number one, we believed it was encompassed in the original 1994 resolution from the board. And secondly, this district, because the cost of ice hockey is so high, we could never fully fund an ice hockey team, which is what that policy contemplates. So it really falls on the back of the parents originally. So in terms of the whole, what is it titled?
Title IX.
Yeah, that I'm not sure of the implications.
Well, because my interpretation of the implications being, if the intent of the board at the time was to not fully fund, but just to get it going and starting, is there an obligation to match that, if you want to say, small level of funding?
I don't know.
Right, we could certainly speak to Sandy. We have had conversations with her about Title IX, so we can bring up that specific question.
Yes.
So it's conversation to be continued.
Right.
When is
how
their
many levels?
season?
My understanding from Sandy and Ginny, you'll probably know if I'm wrong. You'll let me know. There's it's like the genesis of interest. There are parents, they're not even sure. They're certainly not skating this year because the season's over, or in playoffs. But they're trying to figure out if they have enough to move forward for what would be next winter. So we have time to figure this out and do it the right way.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, I think part of the conversation that we had was that we were told that a girls' team might not be ready to compete at a league level, but they might be at a developmental level.
Seemed very vague.
So I'm not exactly sure that I don't know how that qualifies in my mind for Board of Education designated team naming support. We don't really have developmental teams that we support.
It would be more of a club.
Club,
Well, yeah, but not really. So yeah, it's not being viewed that way from an administrative point of view at the moment. At least the request didn't come to us in that form. So I do think that there's some analyses that have to still take place.
Well, if that's the case, then we either have to call it a club, call it a sports team, or to create the classification of developmental league. And, it can't be Westfield High School staff with some district dollars with high school students working together and not have some kind of oversight.
Right. Did you? I need you to come and, just because we're videotaping, I need you to come and state your name and address. We want to hear what you have to say. I'm sorry. Okay.
Scares them off.
I know. I'm sorry.
Back here, Dave. Thank you.
Understood. Okay. Anything else, Chris?
Nothing further for policies.
Curriculum instruction and program. In Peggy's absence, I'd ask the board to consider curriculum items 1, 2, and 3 that are on the agenda. Can I have a second, please? Mitch, thank you. Any questions, conversation? I think that the accountability action plans were pretty thoroughly discussed in the blue notes. And then I'll just talk very briefly about the first reading, because I think Peggy asked me to tell you that her, not only in addition to her life being kind of topsy-turvy personally this week, her computer crashed, so the SIP notes didn't make it to us. They're sitting in her outbox just spooling. So we had presentation at the curriculum committee last week for health and phys ed, the new health curriculum K through 5, and then the high school health curriculum. I have to tell you, sitting on the SIP committee is by far the best thing we do. And having the teachers come and talk about what they're doing in the classrooms, and it's exciting. It's exciting in the way that Paul's presentation about technology is. And so they were great presentations. There's a lot of collaboration going on K through 5, and also in the high school, upgrading our health curriculum, and talking also about the ways that technology is being infused. It's a lot of information, and the health teachers basically get, especially at the K through 5 level, they get the kids for like 20-minute snippets, and so they're experts at what they do. And so the curriculum that you saw that's on for first reading is really good and exciting. And then the Holocaust genocide curriculum is a state mandate. We're required by statute to infuse conversation about the Holocaust and the genocide into every level K through 12. And so Andrea Brennan came, and she had created almost like a chart of how the 5 identified objectives from the state are addressed in every level K through 12, and it was great. So that was the conversation curriculum committee. Ginny, did I miss anything?
I wasn't there.
Oh, sorry.
But could the board receive that chart about the target areas for, thank you. Holocaust, genocide, education, thank you.
Okay, Dana.
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Olig.
Yes.
Charles Ostroff.
Yes.
Nick Slater.
Yes.
Nothing further, so finance. Mark.
I'd like the board to consider finance items 1 and 2. Mitch, thank you. Second. Any questions or comments?
Mark Friedman?
Yes.
Brendan Galligan?
Yes.
Chris Langhart?
Yes.
Ginny Lights?
Yes.
Gretchen Olig?
Yes.
Charles Ostroff?
Yes.
Mitch Slater?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Brendan, anything from legislation?
Yeah, quick. On, I believe, February 18th, the Assembly passed a bill authorizing the creation of a task force studying full-day kindergarten. It's yet to be introduced in the Senate, and obviously hasn't been signed into law yet, but keep looking out for it.
Okay.
It's not something we can handle with our current facilities. So
Right.
If it progresses, we'll have to have more conversations as a board.
Okay.
Dana should figure it out.
Technology, are you
Pump
done?
test.
You have
I think
anything
we're
else
good.
to add?
I think we're good. Well presented.
I'd ask the board to note the notes for the record. Do we have any unfinished business? New business? Liaison reports? Jenny?
I attended the PCC Presidents and General meetings. Dr. Dolan was also there. And Mr. Pinero was at the PCC General Membership meeting to present parent portal access to Assessment Park and moving forward with the park. There's considerable discussion at that meeting about graduation requirements and how the district was going to communicate to high school parents based on the variation of different options for students over the years being able to qualify for graduation. At the PTC President's meeting, there was considerable conversation about polling sites, especially for the upcoming presidential election in November. Roosevelt is currently one of our polling sites, and it's the only school where access is not direct into the polling activity area. Parents, there is access, but it's in the back of the school, and we talked about signage and whether that would help direct citizens to the actual physical entrance for the polling versus coming in from the front of the school, which does not allow them direct access into the gym.
Right, we did follow up on that a bit. So that entrance is necessary for handicap access. And additionally, there has been someone in the hallway there during school hours at that entrance during polling.
So maybe we'll follow up to the PTO presidents there and,
yes,
and give some kind of specifics about how it's going to be managed.
Right, and how it has been as well, right? Yeah.
Okay, see if they can relate that to their parent community. And,
yes.
And see if they can feel more comfortable about that. There was one other question. Girls Learn International is dealing with transitioning from a club advisor, and they were talking about their question of whether an advisor could be paid for as a stipended position, which it is currently not, nor has it been included in any factual conversations that we've had.
And I did follow up with the intermediate principals about that as well, so we can speak to that at the next PTC meeting as well.
Otherwise, I think we're pretty good on the list.
I think so, yeah.
Charles?
Last week on February 25th, I had the opportunity to attend the Board of Trustees meeting for the Westfield Memorial Library. Just two small items of note was the Friends of the Library had this Museum Pass program. There's two museums that have been added, the Liberty Science Center and the Newark Museum. And you need to bring, and it was stressed, your library card with you, you will receive a $3 discount off admission. I do not have the specific date, which is the last week of April. The Friends of the Library will have their annual book and DVD sale. It's a major revenue source for the library through the Friends, and it's something that they look forward to every year. And of course, they say annually, the Friends of the Library, their membership drive is going on year-round.
Thank you. I know they were glad to have you. They're very welcoming, right?
Yes, yes, it's been interesting. I've learned a lot through the technology as committee as well as sitting in the library,
Yeah.
the Board of Trustees.
Any other? I just have one brief one. I wanted to update y'all, you know, at the end of graduation every year, when we have graduation in the Armory, we got bombarded with emails about how horrible the Armory is. It's too hot, it's not fair, there must be other places. So I wanted to report out that the Westfield High School put a kind of exploratory committee together, and which included a number of parents, and basically vetted you know, sites that geographically made sense to see if there was a potential that in the event we cannot have the graduation at Kaler Stadium, if there was an alternative to using the Armory. And the conclusion at the end of the day is, thank God we have the Armory, because any other place either was not welcoming or unavailable or just too expensive. And logistically, because the rehearsal for graduation takes place the day before, you know, we were relatively limited in terms of the geographic scope of places we could look at. So I just wanted to report that out because I think it's important. I think people email us at the end of an Army graduation as if we've never thought about the fact that it's hot before. But Peter was really good in terms of including parents who expressed concern and kind of said there has to be another way. And then it was a full report at the PTSO meeting. So I wanted you guys to know that, and I wanted the public to know. And we know it's hot, and hopefully it'll be a nice day.
Absolutely, it's going to be a nice day.
Okay. Says
And
our
other
weather woman.
one of the other major challenges, we have large graduating classes. There are some high schools near us that are less than half our size. So that certainly changes what options you have. We generally have on an average of maybe close to 500 students, and then if you had, say, 4 people for their family to come to the graduation, there are not many places anywhere near us.
Right.
And there certainly aren't ones that are available to us or, yeah,
Right.
as you mentioned.
And interestingly, part of that process was talking to other high schools about what they do, and I can't remember now which town it was, but they basically, if it's bad weather, they'd go really fast outside. Like, I mean, that's like the only option they have. It's like, you know, here we go, here we go, here we go. So
I know which one it is, but I won't say.
I'd like to recognize the public for any questions or comments. Seeing no one come to the podium, I would ask the board to approve the following resolution. Resolved that the Board of Education move into private session for the purpose of discussing legal matters rendered confidential by state and federal law and personnel matters. Resolved that any discussion held by the board which need not remain confidential, and the results of discussion will be made public as soon as practicable. Can I have a second? Ginny, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.